Assalamu alaikum, you're watching Views and News and I'm Faisal Rehman live from our Islamabad studios. Today we'll be talking about the Modi speech in the UNGA, plus the kind of meetings that were held in the United Nations General Assembly on the sidelines perhaps, and a lot of allegations on Pakistan when you talk about their first secretary, Ms. Dubey. She also mentioned that Pakistan is perhaps nurturing terrorism, and also talking about the US congressional report where they have named about 12 banned outfits. So this is what they are trying to capitalize on from day one. They have no proof, nothing, but just a couple of congressmen which support the Indians, and they will make sure that their statements should be given some sort of a weightage so that the world listens to the Indian perspective. But on the other hand, when you talk about the Vice President, Kamla Harris, she has also talked about bringing in proper democracy in India. As we all know that during the last couple of months, things have really changed. And perhaps if you look back, ever since the Article 370 was abrogated and the special status of the Kashmiris was snatched away, we have seen similar incidents taking place in Assam. Recent killing of 2 Muslims in that particular part is an example of what the Indian law enforcement agencies can do and the kind of support they enjoy by the RSS media. Now, before I introduce you to our panelist, our production team has prepared a package. Let's watch that. Volume. I'll now quickly introduce you to our panelists. We have with us in our studio on my right is Brigadier retired TIPU SULTAN, senior analyst. Sir, thank you so much for your time. And we also have with us Dr. FARAH. She is an expert on foreign affairs, and on Skype we'll be joined in by Syed Muhammad Ali from Washington, United States of America. He is an expert on international relations. Thank you very much for your participation in the show. But sir, there was some technical problem earlier with our package. Now we'll be able to see it.
Ultra right. He took the office of Prime Minister of India. The state's terroristic and propaganda-tinted tactics boosted considerably in their domestic as well as international political policies and approaches. These terroristic and propaganda-ridden policies, which seeped into the roots of the Indian foreign policy, pushed the self-proclaimed largest democracy to the depths of the humiliation in the international arena. The chaotic exit of the United States from South Asia had already loosened the grip of India from the dream of being a net security provider in South Asia. On the other hand, the United States' hopes with India playing the role of its strategic partner in South Asia is getting dimmer with every fascist action by the Modi's government, which is consistently burying its claims of being the largest pluralistic democracy in the rubble of its extremist policies. Modi's brutal policies against the minorities of India are pushing the United States to disown its fast ally in South Asia, and this was prevalent in the recent diplomatic visits between the two countries. Earlier, in July 2021, during his visit to India, the United States Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, gave the lessons to India regarding true democracy. Moreover, recently, when India's Prime Minister visited the United States, he encountered an anti-Howdy Modi rhetoric and was lectured by the United States Vice President Kamala Harris regarding protecting the country's democracy. These two events must be taken as eye-openers for India that now its anti-democracy approaches and state-sponsored terrorism are being rejected by even its friendly countries, and even the fake propaganda tactics will not be able to revive this humiliation.
Now, talking about the protection of democracy in India, I mean, Kamala Harris, sir, who happens to be the Vice President, and perhaps you never know, she could become the first female president at some stage. But now, sir, she has talked about protecting the rights of the minorities, and in particular the rights of the Muslims in India. No matter, sir, what the government of India says, the reality is pretty different. We recently witnessed what happened in Assam, for that matter. And it is not about the killing of anybody, sir. It's the way that person was killed. Look at the number of men in uniform who were present there. Rather than protecting their own person or that own countrymate and that individual from Assam, the way he was shot and the way his body was later on tortured, I mean, that's unbelievable. You can't even show those visuals on the screen, sir. And this is not something which happens, once in a while. This is a regular feature, sir. And when you talk about Kashmir and the northern part of India, forget about Khalistan, we also witnessed the kind of treatment Modi got there as well. But sir, this minority, the human rights issue, perhaps a proper orchestrated campaign against the Muslims, I mean, this seems that it is not going to stop unless and until there is a proper restriction or some sort of sanctions imposed on the Indian regime, sir.
Well,
so we'll just take a short break here, sir. We'll take a short break, and after the break we'll return and we'll continue our discussion. Welcome back after the break. Now, we're going to start talking about the conversation that took place between the Vice President of the United States of America, Kamala Harris, and the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. One thing which seems to be very important and pertinent is that she in fact emphasized, number one, on human rights issue, and secondly about the real democratic principles. Now, obviously, sir, I think whether the Indians claim that they are the largest democracy, but perhaps whatever is going on is also under observation. Let's start off from there, sir.
Well, coming from Kamala Harris, it was a pleasant surprise, I would say. But in this modern era, Faisal, I will tell you that this lynching of people and so much of zulm on minorities and what happens in India, what is more important is that the world in this modern age of information and technology and all looking the other way and letting India get away with it. India was never secular. Even on the, so-called the Gandhian and Nehruian policies and all that, India was never ever secular. There were anti-Muslim riots since the inception of India and Pakistan partition in 1947. But under Modi, what has happened is that this manifestation has touched all heights of atrocities, sufferings of particularly of Muslims, and enacting laws like you have to prove your citizenship and you have to come up with your birth certificate and all that. I think the world is coming to realize, and one very important factor in exposing India is Pakistan, that to our leader, the Prime Minister Imran Khan. I think he has left no stone unturned. Each occasion, even at the opening of Kartarpur Singh corridor, the other day I was listening to his old speech, and in which he said that you have to finish the hatred, and you have to solve the problem, you have to love people, and the message of Baba Guru Nanak, all the Sufis and all that was love and not hate, and why are you dividing people? And by dividing people, you will be at loss. Indeed, I think the Indian intellectuals are themselves very worried on what Modi is doing to India. Of course, the large amount of illiterate people and religious extremists and those who believe in Nazism and Hindutva and RSS are there to support him. He segregated those votes and he secured his political future. But indeed, what will suffer at the end is India. And I think we don't need to do anything with them. The Indians are going to implode from inside. What Modi and Amit Shah and Ajit Doval are doing to India is to the detriment of India, and the Indian future is not very secure. What is happening in America and what is happening in the world and the UN, I think after the Americans left Afghanistan, and after India felt that they had been left over and their designs in South Asia were thwarted by the defeat of the NATO and Americans in Afghanistan, they had to leave and close all those raw offices and whatnot through which they were failing terrorism into Pakistan. And the Americans were also in dismay and being defeated in Afghanistan, and they were isolated. And here came the Chinese and the Russians and Uzbeks and Central Asians and Pakistan. I think that bloc, that white, so-called white bloc of Europe, comprising of UK, Australia, and perhaps Japan and America have realized that, and they're into a so-called sinister strategic activities in which the first thing they want to do is to malign Pakistan of terrorism and issuing all sorts of statements. And they need a football, whether it is Saddam Hussein, whether it is Muammar Gaddafi, whether it is Osama bin Laden or whoever, or Mullah Omar, and they have left no football to play because all footballs are busted in their faces, and they need another football, and they want to change direction and accuse Pakistan. And that is what has been happening in congressional meetings and hearings and all that, and their senators are known to have said stupid things, which is a strategy in which the Americans have failed. I've always referred for the world to notice what MacArthur had done to Japan, and the entire Japanese nation was weeping when he was leaving, because he was the rebuilder of Afghanistan. Here, whether it is General McKenzie or McChrystal or Admiral Mullen and all that, they could not do a damn about Afghanistan and building Afghanistan. They destroyed, they killed people, they bombed marriage parties, they bombed schools, madrasas, everything. Even now, while they were withdrawing, they killed innocent people. And they said, we are sorry.
Initially, they were claiming that ISIS members have been killed.
ISIS members have been killed. And lo and behold, the Americans have engineered and orchestrated a policy and law that their forces are immune to be prosecuted under Geneva Convention and the International Court of Justice. And they talk of peace, they talk of freedom, they talk of democracy, they talk of human rights.
Yeah.
They should be ashamed of themselves because they have stopped human rights, they have stopped democracy, they have stopped justice in all corners of the world, and that they have been supporting the terrorist organizations themselves. They have been killing innocent people themselves. They have been supporting a monster like Modi themselves, who have been killing people.
These
so
are
this is what
realities, sir. Unfortunately,
this is what
the
they are
double
facing.
standard of the
And
Western
let me
world.
tell you, the pressure of the print and the electronic media is going to come to pressurize them. What Newsweek editor has said, in fact, he had posted Modi's picture on the front page, at the cover page, and he said, Modi, the divider in chief. And here comes Imran Khan, and the editor of Newsweek says that it was an honor to interview Mr. Imran Khan, the Prime Minister of Pakistan. He was looking forward to this honor and privilege and this opportunity for a long time.
And
this
interestingly,
is
this is the reality, because even this time, a lot of people hailed the speech of the Prime Minister, though he wasn't physically present in America, but still, though Modi was.
Look at this.
But the kind of response which Pakistan got was unparalleled.
Look at his enormous persona which has been projected in neutral media and those quarters who want well-being of the world and fair play. Not Congress, not the American Pentagon policy or their national security or CIA, which is, they have not learned since the Soviets left in the late 70s and early 80s from Afghanistan.
Because
they
are
repeating their
the
mistakes.
perceptions are different, the ideology is totally different, but I think this is what it is all about. At the end of the day, nothing is permanent but change. Now, coming to you, Dr. Saiba, first of all, when we say Modi's fall from the grace in the United States, there was a time when Trump was the president, Modi visited, and we all got to know about Howdy Modi, and the people were there, and I still remember that the front seats, they were sold at $50,000. $50,000. That's not a joke, that's a lot of money. Just to attend that particular meeting. So everybody used to talk about Modi's connection with Donald Trump, but the way recently Donald Trump spoke about our own Prime Minister, that was brilliant. I mean, he said that Khan is a great guy, he's a straightforward person, and he's a sportsman, and I, in fact, really appreciate the kind of efforts he has been making. And I remember when Khan Sahab met Trump initially, and I mean, that was such a positive kind of a meeting. The body language was very different, and everything which we witnessed was amazing to, in fact, have a look on the television screen. But ma'am, now the Indians also, make this issue that the Prime Minister hasn't spoken to Biden. Maybe Biden is not interested, perhaps Mr. Khan is not interested, but when it comes to Modi, they all in fact refer to the kind of clapping which Modi received in the UNGA. Perhaps there was a lot more that was happening during that time. Nobody talked about that. The Sikhs were out. outside the UNGA. There were Muslims, there were Kashmiris, there were all those people who were in fact representing certain minorities who were in fact under target in India, and especially after the implementation of CAA.
Yes, I think the core reason behind that is the Indian and the Modi's fascist agenda, which got exposed within the United States in the recent Hindutva conference, which is called Dismantling Global Hindutva. So in that, around 53 top-notch world universities participated, and it was supported by Harvard, Stanford, University of Pennsylvania, Chicago, you just name it, all of them. And in that, Indian academics primarily, and other academics too, they exposed Hindutva ideology, Modi's ideology, and what Modi is doing to the minority, the way RSS and BJP is handling minorities there, particularly Muslims, Sikhs, Dalits, and the Adivasis. So they mentioned that Modi is not equal and not considering equally all those factions who are living there within India, and he's treating them as somebody who is Shuddha. So casteism is very prominent there. The way Modi handled COVID, with like instead of treating them with medicine, he promoted, and his followers promoted, to treat people with urine and the cow dung. So those kind of narratives.
Somebody said, you know, if there's a nuclear war, you just
yeah,
apply that
I
on your
heard
body
about
and you'll
that
be safe.
too. Yeah, so I think if they can be protected from COVID-19 and the coronavirus itself from drinking the urine and having the cow dung on them, they can easily say that we don't care about Pakistani nuclear weapon because we will just apply cow dung on us. So I would say, yes, we can give credit to Prime Minister Imran Khan for exposing Modi and his fascist agenda there as well. But at the same time, it's the Indian academics who expose Modi's fascist agenda within the United States. And I think in the history of the Indian democracy and all, it was for the very first time when 18 organizations went and briefed the American congressman about the Hindutva ideology and what Hindutva means. They were very sick, and the way all these speakers got targeted and threatened by India, and RAW in particular, the way they were receiving death threats, the way their passports got cancelled, the Indian passports. So they were openly talking about it. In my lifetime, I've never seen it. The way they spoke there very openly about what Modi, under the BJP leadership, they are doing to all these people. They also shared that academia is under severe threat from Modi and his regime, and Hindutva particularly. They are not allowed to conduct research on Kashmir. They can see there is a lot of violence taking place against Muslims in Kashmir, but they are not openly allowed to talk about it. When it comes to research, the research has to get approved from the government. So they say there are several barriers which distract their research, which distract their performance. Everything has to be tailored from the government, from the RSS agenda. That shows how fascist Modi is in dealing with his own people.
But what is he going to gain at the end of the day? Let's suppose he kills those 22 crore Muslims in India. I'm just giving you an example. What will he gain? I mean, a pure Hindu country, is it about the civilizations war, or what exactly is brewing in his mind?
I think as we talk about TTP, what will they gain, right? So Modi under Hindutva, they are a radical group. Like, we need to understand Hinduism and Hindutva. Hinduism is not the intolerant version of whatever Modi and Hindutva are promoting and talking about. Hinduism is more which believes in equality of all minorities, giving secular rights to everyone. Hindutva don't believe in it. They believe in Brahmanism. They are actually Brahmins. So Brahmanism, they talk about that they are superior, everyone else is inferior. They believe in casteism, where one is at the upper hand, the others all have to be inferior. So this is their agenda. This is what Modi under Hindutva and RSS want to achieve within India, where they should be considered supreme above all, and all others have to follow them.
Ma'am, one more thing, please correct me. I mean, we do understand about the caste system, that Brahmins are at the top and they're the major decision makers, and you have Kshatriyas and so on and so forth, coming down to Shudras. But ma'am, these Dalits, I mean, they are practically untouchables. This is what the Indians believe, especially the Brahmin mindset. That, you know, if you are going on a road, you're walking, and somebody who is a Dalit, he is going to hide because he's not even supposed to show him, you know, being outside or something. I mean, this is the level of caste system out there. It's so
Yeah.
unbelievable. And then the Indians talk about democracy and then they
Exactly.
talk about
Exactly.
human rights.
That's
I fail to
why-
understand what is this going on.
That's why Kamala Harris is pointing out that you need to install proper democracy there. I believe India is no more a democracy, because if there is no freedom of right, freedom of speech, freedom of doing any, let's say even academic work, what sort of democracy they have installed there, where minorities have no right, where I won't stand only for the Muslims, even Indians have no right to do anything there. So how could they call themselves a democratic state? It's a fascist state. It's a Nazi's ideology that they are promoting and implementing there within India, which probably will no more work there. And one more thing is, it's not only limited to India alone, it's spreading to the Western world as well. The way through this conference, the way they attacked the Western academic world, this shows that they are very strongly infiltrating into the Western academic system and they want to control them. So if they were trying to, the conference to be stopped and not to be run there online, and even the speakers were getting threats, live threats and all, they were trying to control the Western world, freedom of speech as well. So probably that's the reason the Western world have realized that fascism and its ideology and Hindutva is spreading from India to the rest of the world.
All right. Now, because of one important point, in the House of Commons and in the United Kingdom, I mean, there were MPs and they were debating about the human rights again, and they were pointing towards Narendra Modi once again at what we have witnessed, and the kind of, I would say, influence which Pakistan or perhaps the Kashmiris enjoy in the kind of diaspora they have. They have some sort of, I won't use the word command, but some sort of an influence. They have that persuading factor there. But sir, when you talk to the Americans, unfortunately, sir, every other person who happens to be in any university as a head of department, sir, I mean, they are spreading their own narrative to the Western, I would say, world rather, the students out there. So don't you think, sir, this should also be put under a check, that what you are being taught, I'm talking about the students, what you're being taught is not 100% correct. Please, you need to make sure that your facts and figures are correct. But if they're not allowed to even research, like ma'am was just mentioning, sir, don't you think this is going to be a different world where people would be thinking differently, the reality would be totally different, and there could be a confusion brewing?
Well, if you look through the pages of the history, the West has always sided with India. When the papers and the telegrams of 1965 war were declassified, and Pakistan was a member of NATO and CETO and CENTO, the American ambassador over here said that if we have to take any side, it should be India and not Pakistan. The Britishers announced that the Indian forces had captured Lahore in 1965, which is absolutely false. With regard to Kashmir, they have never sided with us from their hearts. If there are speeches in the British Parliament through the parliamentarians who won their elections, who are Muslim, Kashmiris and all that, the British government comes under a little bit of pressure and releases a statement here and there, but nothing practical as such. Look what have they done to cricket. They have advised New Zealand to go back and they cancelled their own tour for no rhyme or reason. So to expect anything from the British democracy or Western democracies will be pinning false hopes on them. A little while ago we were talking about why in India they are doing all that. What do they get out of it? You know, the strategic political reasons, short-term political reasons of the BJP is that they want to hang over onto the power, they want to win elections. Whether it is attacking Balakot or whether it is a rhetoric against Pakistan that hum ghus ke aapko marenge and all that stuff, the events that they play and they self-create bombings, and whether it is Balakot, Pathankot or their parliament or whatever. You know what the BJP has done is that by orchestrating a policy of hatred against the minorities, they have collected all the Hindu vote majority in their kitty, and they have come to power. So we must understand that what are the political reasons for the BJP to orchestrate this policy. The Hindus are in frenzy of supporting Modi, whether he has killed thousands of Muslims in Gujarat or whatever he is doing in Assam, whatever he is doing in Chhattisgarh or Punjab or Kashmir is not a concern for them. The bulk of population in India comprises of Hindu fundamentalists. They kept the vote on one side, and that ensures the BJP to remain in power. That is one very big reason.
But there's one important point. If you remember, I mean, looking at these states, which I mean, Kashmir is a disputed piece of land for sure, but it's a Muslim majority out of all these states. Number two is Assam, by the way. Around 40% of people live in Assam
about
are
35.
Muslims.
Yeah.
So around 35 to 40%. This is what they claim up. There were two different, in fact, figures. But what I'm saying is that over there, sir, I mean, are they also trying to, in fact, put in the same formula, or rather going to apply the same formula which they have done that in Kashmir? Because, sir, Assam has a lot of genuine issues. You talk about Chhattisgarh, you talk about Nagaland, you talk about Assam, Bihar, and perhaps the chicken neck, the east of the chicken neck, sir. It's very vulnerable also.
Very vulnerable. But, they have disenfranchised lakhs of Muslims over there, and they said, you're not our citizens. And some of the Bengalis who have been living for ages in India, and they said, you go back to Bangladesh, you are Muslim Bengalis, the Bengal
and
is
this
separate.
has become a major dispute between Bangladesh and India.
I'm happy that is happening. And the other major reason, one is this political reason, the other major reason is the psychological aspect of it. Remember when Bangladesh came into being, and Indira Gandhi was very joyous, and she said that we have taken a revenge of 1,000 years from Muslims. What does that mean? Because in the back of their mind, they do understand that the Delhi and the Indians have been ruled by Salatin and Delhi and Mughals for a very long time, about 800 years. And all invaders came from the north, and they invaded.
Now in India, they're trying to change the history by demolishing the mosques and other great.
They're doing that, and they hate Mahmud of Ghazna, although we have our missiles on Ghaznavi's name. And वो इकबाल भी कहता है ना कि न गज़नबी में न मुस्खम है ज़ुल्फ़े अयाज़ में न गज़नबी में तड़प रही वो बात ये है कि the thing is that the Muslims are ruled for a long time in India, and the Hindus are very aware of it, and their actions and their animal behavior is a manifestation of that. Although when the Muslims ruled India, there were no atrocities on Hindus or Sikhs. Raja Man Singh was the commander-in-chief of Mughal forces for a very long time, and so many Hindu scholars were in the court of the Mughals.
All right, but sir, if you allow me, sir, we have been joined in by Anwar Iqbal Saab, senior journalist from USA, and we'll ask him about the media and the latest visit of Narendra Modi. Iqbal Saab, Assalamu alaikum ji.
Alaikum assalam.
Good to have you, and it's been a while since we have had a chat, sir. But Anwar Iqbal Saab, now talking about the overall visit of Narendra Modi as compared to when Trump was in power. I mean, let's compare the two scenarios, Howdy Modi and the present visit, sir, because the Indians are saying that this was a great visit. I think we have achieved all what we wanted to. We have exposed Pakistan and God knows what and what not. How do you see that as a journalist, and what about the American media? How are they reporting the visit of Narendra Modi, sir? Facts and figures, your take.
See, as far as the Americans are concerned, whether the media, the administration, or the think tanks, there is definitely an affinity with India in the United States now. And the main reason is the Americans are focused on China now. They want to contain China's influence. They want to contain China's efforts to have greater say in world affairs, and therefore they see India as an ally, because India is a large country. India borders China, and India has issues with China. So they think that India can be an effective partner in their fight against China. And so, I mean, for us, for Pakistan, to compare Modi's visit to this Biden administration or during the Trump administration is only an academic discussion. I mean, yes, there was sort of difference of spectacles Trump was very much into holding public rallies and marches and showing off. Biden is not. So when Modi came during the Trump era, he was sort of presented as a hero before the American public because that's what Trump presented himself as. But while Biden does not do that, so it was more sort of low key. But the basic sentiment that India can be an effective partner against China is still very much there.
All right. Now, talking about the human rights issue, sir, we have also learned that Kamala Harris, in fact, had an exchange of certain comments regarding the human rights issue, in particular the CA.
Yes, Kamla Harris is very strong in human rights. She has been a human rights campaigner. She spoke openly in favor of Kashmir and the people of Kashmir when she was a senator, and during Modi's visit to, when she made it obvious that she still has her concerns about certain things happening in India. Obviously, as a host, she couldn't have directly attacked Modi, or she couldn't have raised those issues directly. Therefore, she went sort of an indirect way, went around it, and spoke about democracy, how democracies are supposed to behave. And then she said that a democracy always respects human rights, a democracy always looks after minorities and things like that. So obviously that was a very obvious reference to what is happening in India, particularly what is happening in Kashmir. And Modi knows that although she is half Indian, but she is not going to support him on this issue.
So when she says that we defend democratic principles, so did she in fact emphasize on any particular area, or that was a general statement?
It was, see, I mean, like you are the host, you're hosting, and the vice president only has a ceremonial role in America. You know that the vice president has no power. She cannot take any single decision. She is only there to replace the president if something happens to the president, or even the president is out touring other countries, then she looks after the administration. And therefore, the vice president does not interfere in the affairs of the state. And so even whatever she did, like even saying this much, was actually an exception. Usually vice presidents don't do that. So for her to actually decide to say this thing shows how concerned she is about that issue. We need to understand that as somebody who has been living in Washington for the last 20 years and worked for the U.S. media for 14 years. And I think this is a very big thing for a vice president even to mention the issues that she is concerned about. Usually vice presidents don't do that.
All right. Thank you very much, Kamal Saab. It was a pleasure having you, Anwar Iqbal. Thank you so much. Now, coming to you, Mom, another important area, I would say, is we always talk about the Indian democratic norms, and we say that they claim this, but the reality is very different. Now, ma'am, talking about this strategic alliance, because as Brigadier was earlier mentioning that, you know, even in 65, when we were this close to the Americans, the support was going somewhere else. Even in 71, we got to know that, you know, there was this aircraft carrier that was coming, the fleet, so-called the Sixth Fleet, sir?
Seventh Fleet.
Seventh Fleet is coming, and they will rescue, but nothing happened. So
how naive we were.
One thing, sir, that is for sure now, Dr. Saiba, and that is about the kind of strategic arrangement. It makes a lot of sense, because now if they are looking at China as a great adversary, the role of India is going to be very crucial, so they'll place them against them. But ma'am, the role of Russians, the future of SCO, and then, you know, we do understand what Quad means to them, but this AUKUS means something else. I mean, do you see them fitting in? Because the way the Americans left the Afghan public, let me put it this way, that has raised a lot of eyebrows. And even those eyebrows were raised in the top ranks of the Indians.
Yeah, I think they are shifting their directions from India towards somewhere else, though in terms of China considering them as their adversaries. So India is very important, but India is not fitting in based on all the problems that are emerging there within the Indian soil, where even it's not only a threat to minorities, but to the Indian population as well. So based on that, I think what the Vice President of America has said, that they need to fix their democratic norms to bring them to the terms. So at least they can project in the world, if they are supporting India, India is a democratic country where everyone gets their right share of within the government. So if they don't do so, probably they will not be fitting into the entire situation. And I think the AUKUS example is very clear, where they never ever considered them. I won't say that they should have been doing it with India.
People believe that this is the white man's, party or something of that
It's
sort.
the elitist party where the strangers are not fitting into. So India, after that, some different narratives are coming in where they are asking India to reshape your democratic norms, reshape your democracy, fix yourself. And the way Modi has received treatment on the US soil is a clear example that we don't consider you equally important as we used to be.
Ma'am, if you remember, there was this very interesting interview, not an interview, that was a lecture basically by none other than the Indian Defence Forces head, General Bipin Rawat. And in fact, he did talk about the clash of civilizations in the future. And looking at the current alignments, it seems that he is pretty right, because the way Indians have been kept aside in AUKUS, because obviously, why would Australia need 8 of the nuclear submarines, which will at some stage, you never know, could carry nuclear weapons also.
You have rightly quoted that it's a white man's show. And at the same time, the way India is manipulating its diaspora in the world, in the global village, so it is using them for achieving its fascist agenda, its fascist ideology. So all these powerful states, Australia, UK, and America, they're getting threatened with the rise of fascism on their soil, and probably they are coming off the opinion that they probably will not be able to counter that if it starts growing at this fast pace on their soil. So they are trying to put India into its compartment, in its right box, that if you don't behave well, this is what we do to you. This is how you're going to receive a treatment from the Western world. It's a huge blow to Modi and to the Indian democratic government.
Well, let's see. Interesting times ahead, as I always say. But since I was just told that we are running out of time, Priti Saab, I would like to say thank you so much for your presence. And ma'am, it was a pleasure having you. And that's all we have for this hour. I'll see you tomorrow at 8 or 5. Till then, you take good care. Khuda Hafiz.